Hi, this is Dr. Elizabeth Medlock with your life coaching tip of the week for the week of January 27th, 2013, and I know it's January 28th. These might be coming on Tuesday instead of Monday is what I'm thinking. This week I want to talk about dealing with kids' negative behaviors. Gee, I wonder why I want to talk about that. I have a 7-year-old, as you know, and I've been learning a lot because my child does have some behavior issues, as I think a lot of our children do. And I've been talking to a lot of parents recently with children, similar age children, between the ages of 5 and 8. And it's amazing how many parents kind of tell the same story about the types of behaviors that they're dealing with, but nobody really talks about. Anger, tantrums, rages, disrespectful talk, a whole myriad of things where they behave really great in school, really great in front of other people, but when they get home they kind of disintegrate and nobody believes that your child is anything but wonderful. So I'll talk about some things that I've used and some other parents have used to kind of deal with some of these anxious, kind of negative, angry, out of control, not moving forward is what I call it, behaviors. One thing that I went back to, which is an old school way of dealing things, is the timer. A lot of parents say that they have trouble getting their children kind of dressed and out the door in the mornings, or getting to events, and just the procrastination and having to tell them things, as you've heard, put on your shoes, put on your shoes, put on your shoes, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, and you feel like a broken record. And one of the things is to go back and get a timer and just say, okay, I'm going to set the timer and you have, 5 minutes to get your teeth brushed and your face washed. You have 5 minutes to get your clothes on. And I found that the timer really works effectively to give the kids the kind of parameters that they need to move forward in a timely fashion. And you kind of figure out, how much time you're going to give them. Start accordingly, and I found to be a much smoother way to get out the door. I will say not all days, but most days. So use a timer. I have a big kitchen timer that I set, and it makes tick, 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 and then when it goes down, it goes bing, and when it does the big bell, she knows that she's run out of time. And you can do that on homework. I use that with homework sometimes. Like, I know how much time her homework should take, and I'll say, okay, I'm giving you 45 minutes to complete this homework. Or we can break up the homework and I'm going to give you, could you do work for 15 minutes? You can use it in all different types of settings. Or if your child's a grazer, like mine is, you can take like an hour to an hour and a half to eat. Sometimes I'll put the clock on the eating. It works great. Another thing I've been using is the old school method of doing the countdown. So when your child's engaging in behaviors that you want to stop, you can do the I'm going to count to 3. And then when you count to 3, they suffer a consequence, which is usually losing something that they really like. So you say, okay, you need to get it together and calm down. I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2. This is old school. A lot of people use it. You only count to 3, and on 3, they haven't got under control. They lose something. My child has been losing her iPod Touch left and right. She lost recently many of her birthday presents are now closeted for a week. It could be, they lose this privilege, they were going to have a play date this week and there's no play dates this week. Just kind of natural consequences of things that they like to do, that they typically get, or, you're not going to get that treat that you like, or we're not going to do this that we said we were going to do, or, again, taking away something that they like, like a stuffed animal, or, I'm going to take away 2 of your stuffed animals. My daughter has 200. But, or, start taking away some of their toys. I let her choose the toy. We're going to put it away for a week. It doesn't go away, indefinitely. It goes away for a week. The iPod Touch that we have now goes away. Usually she uses it for the whole week until the weekend. But that's the countdown method. What I tell parents is there's a difference between basical anxiety and back talking, and again, you can do the countdown with the back talking. If you think they're being disrespectful, point out they're being disrespectful, say you're going to count to 3 and it has to be over. Teach them how to apologize for their behavior, explain to them what the behavior was that was offensive, why it's problematic, how they need to correct it. And I think having an apology is important. If you're in a good old-fashioned eyes rolling back in the head rage, which many children have, it's very different. I've talked a lot of this with other psychologists, but when you have a rage going on, your child is just not present. And I know many of you experience it. It's literally like they have checked out, clocked out. None of these things, and timeout usually, by the way, doesn't really work after like 5 or 6 anyway, but even consequences, you can be counting down all day if a child's in a rage. So when a child's in a rage, I think the best thing to do is they can't redirect their anger. One thing you can have them beat on a pillow. You can have them, go upstairs and throw around their stuffed animals. That's not going to hurt anything. Scream into a pillow. I mean, it's kind of like primal scream therapy, but if they can have ways to kind of get their anger out of their bodies or go run around. I put my daughter in the backyard, just say, just go back in the backyard, just run around, kind of burn off that energy. But when they're in a full-blown, like throwing themselves on the floor rage, what I tend to do is just ignore it. I mean, there is a point where they're not really in there. You have to kind of clear the room out, make sure they don't bang their head on the wall. They're not going to injure themselves or injure you, and you kind of just walk away from it. I know that's hard for a lot of parents to do, but I have definitely just removed myself from it, or I've cleared out her room to make sure she doesn't kind of run into anything or bang into anything. And sometimes you just need to walk away or put them outside in the backyard. Or put them somewhere where it's safe, where they're not going to hurt themselves if they're throwing themselves on the floor, or kicking or hitting or anything that they're doing, because they're in that what we call a rage. It's just kind of a wall of emotion. It happens to kids when they just don't have the words to articulate what they're feeling, and they also can't seem to get a handle on it until it explodes. So another thing, again, you want to do is have them identify, like we do as adults, what their triggers are. And when you first see the escalation occurring, try to get them to go upstairs and be on the pillow or run around. Or a lot of times it's a food issue. I've had a lot of parents say that their child will rage because they're hungry, but they don't identify it as hunger. So shove food down their throat if you have to. That kind of works sometimes. It's just to feed them. It's a distraction, and sometimes it is the hunger that's driving it, but they don't understand it's a hunger cue. So if they haven't eaten, I always say get them to sit down and try to get food down them, and sometimes that will actually be a preventative measure, or running around or going up or beating something. Or we have this big huge gathering drum and kind of beat on a drum. If you get a drum, those things are great. And you get your kid to just like beat the heck out of a drum. All those Nerfy sword things. I did this in therapy. I used to have kids just beat the heck out of trees and stuff with swords. I've had adults do it. It feels actually really good. But ways to kind of get out that energy and get out that negative emotion before it explodes. And once it explodes, you just have to walk away from it. So just wanted to give you some ideas today, because I've been talking to so many parents that it's funny how people don't talk about what's going on in their homes, and sometimes how bad the behaviors are. And kids, they're tired when they get home. They have homework. We pressure our kids a lot, and that's why the overscheduling is so tough. And sometimes it's just minimizing their schedule to if your kid's acting out a lot, having a lot of rage and anger. They just might be darn overscheduled, and you have to really look at, if they're overwhelmed. And some kids have different tolerance levels for being overwhelmed, and you have to kind of start to sort out as a parent if they're overwhelmed, because they usually they don't have the language to say, gee, I'm feeling really stressed and overwhelmed, I need a mental health day, mommy. They don't have those words yet. They just act out. So if you can get to the source of the acting out, you can understand how much stimulation they can take and not take and control that environment, that's going to work well for everyone too. So this is your life coaching tip of the week. I hope you've enjoyed the tip, and I'll see you next week with another tip. Have a great week.